Greetings to you this morning. I'm Omega Burkhart, the ministerial intern here at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Rockford, Illinois. We are streaming to you live this morning on October 25th at 10 a.m., and thank you so much for joining us today. Of course, you may be watching this at a different time, and we're thrilled that you found us any day of the week. We welcome you and all that you bring here today with you. For those of you who are members or friends of this congregation, perhaps you are coming with a sense of community and renewed joy at being together, however virtually. We welcome you. You may be new to this congregation, and perhaps you're coming with a spirit of search and wonder. We welcome you. You are welcomed to us too if you come with anger, sadness, frustration, or anxiety. We bid you welcome. If you join us today because you are in need of worship, perhaps you're coming to us from another Unitarian Universalist congregation or a different denomination altogether, or perhaps no denomination at all, we welcome you. Whoever you are, and whatever brings you to us, we welcome you. We are coming to you live from the sanctuary of this church today. With me is Reverend Marlene Walker, our pulpit guest. Tim Anderson is here too, our colleague in worship and the music director of the church. Autumn Powell, our office manager, is in the back running the technology for us, keeping us streaming live. Our worship associate, Bob Arevalo, has recorded his testimony, and we'll be hearing that a little while later in the service. Chris Ainsworth is online with you if you're watching on Facebook. Feel free to chime in and say hi to Chris. And Lindsay Dunn this week is attending the Liberal Religious Educators Association conference. Reverend Matthew Johnson, of course, is on sabbatical. He will be joining us the Sunday after the elections, but then he will continue his sabbatical until late December. If you're watching on Facebook, please feel free to comment there. It is a live feed. Say hi to your community members, but remember it is a public space, so please be mindful of what you post. If you'd like to like our Facebook page, you can do that as a way of keeping in touch with us, or you can go to the website at uurockford.org and sign up for our newsletter. At this moment, I will ring our bell and we'll begin our worship service. Let us begin today by singing the hymn of the month. This will be the last day that we sing this one, so rise in body or spirit at home and join with us. We'll be singing Here We Are Gathered, hymn 360.
Side by side, circle of kinship, come and step inside. May all who seek here find a kindly word. May all who speak here feel they have been heard. Sing now together this our heart's own song. Here we have gathered, called to celebrate days of our lifetime, matters small and great. We of all ages, women, children, men, infants and sages, ages, sharing what we can. Sing now together this our heart's own song. Life has its battles, sorrows and regret, but in the shadows let us not forget. We who now gather know each other's pain. Kindness can heal us as we give, we gain. Sing now in friendship this our heart's own song.
The flaming chalice is a symbol of our faith, a beacon of truth, a fire for justice, and a warmth for the soul. I will light our chalice here in the sanctuary in a moment, and as you light your chalices at home or the chalice of your heart, let us speak together the covenant of this church. Love is the spirit of this church, and reason is its guide. To dwell together in peace, to seek truth in freedom, and to serve human need. This is our covenant.
May love shine forth through us today. May light of reason guide our way. May beauty, truth, and joy become a flame that burns in every one.
If pandemic time has taught me anything, it has taught me that time is relative. With one foot somewhere in the past last spring and my other foot leading straight into this winter, I wonder, where has the time gone? But also I wonder, why is it taking so darn long? My routine is disrupted. Sleep schedules and work schedules and meal schedules all seem like they're up for negotiation. Some of us haven't seen friends or family in months, and then when we do, it seems like we just saw them yesterday, or perhaps it seems like it's been decades. This time of year is also one of deep reflection for me on my past and my experiences, a time to put away for the winter some of the exuberance of spring and summer cultivation. And of course, some of us are watching and making ourselves prepared for the end of this election cycle, but of course, perhaps the beginning of a whole new era of unknowns. This liminal space, the borderland between summer and winter, the unknown time of pandemic burnout, but also renewed desire to keep ourselves and our loved ones safe, the grief and the hope that this election cycle brings, this liminal space requires us to balance so much, so much. May we know that we are not alone on this tightrope walk. Come, worship with us today as an act of resilience in the face of this continual balancing act.
No longer forward nor behind I look in hope or fear, but grateful take the good for all the jarring notes of life seem blending in a song, and all the angels of its strife slow rounding into calm, and so the shadows fall apart, and so the west winds play, and all the windows of my heart I open to the day.
Girl on Wire, Lucia Stella and Elise Hurst. She stands motionless as the cold breeze bites her cheeks. She stands for hours. Dark thunderclouds begin to prowl across the sky, and the girl on wire knows that she must begin. Staring ahead, she raises her arms out wide and stretches one leg forward to feel for the wire. She curls her toes around the steel and cautiously steps out. Storm clouds billow and the wire gently sways as the girl raises her foot. She holds her breath and inches forward, her dress swishing around her legs. She is watched from a window by curious eyes. Turning her face from the wind, she sees for the first time how high the wire is and how far she could fall. She covers her eyes and crouches into a ball as the wind howls around her. "Help!" she yells. "I'm here. I'm always here, but you have to walk the wire yourself. I'll fall. Then I'll catch you. I can't make it. You are brave. You are strong. You can do anything. You can be anything. But it's all up to you." The girl on wire feels the rain soak through her clothes as she crouches, still swaying in the storm. She sees the street below and the people now gathering to urge her on. She feels the wire long and inviting under her feet, and she curls her toes around it once more. She stands up, ignoring the storm still snapping at her ankles, and raises her arms out wide again. With her eyes fixed steadily on the far edge, she continues, becoming more balanced and sure with every step. The storm clouds break, and the girl on wire stands tall, her arms light, her heart soaring. The wind dies down, and the wire calms. The girl on wire feels the fresh breeze kiss her cheeks, and she smiles, taking one more step, then another, forward.
We will continue to worship online for the foreseeable future. That means you should reach out to folks you normally would see during coffee hour. Drop a line, a card, a text, or a wave from a distance. We do have some upcoming events that I'd like to draw your attention to. Of course, we'll be doing those from a distance as well. If you'd like more information, you can check out our newsletter and also social media like Facebook. I'd like to draw your attention first to the upcoming event. This is the first annual UU Rockford annual pandemic online auction. Now, I understand you've had other auctions, but this is the first online auction, marketplace, and art fair. It'll be taking place in December, and of course, preparations are already underway. If you'd like some more details or you have something that you'd like to offer for that auction, you can check out the information in Kairos, or you can email the auction chair at auctionchair2020@gmail.com. They're looking in particular for anything that would bring us together as a community. Of course, last week I talked a little bit about services, but maybe you can think of something, perhaps a delivery dinner to someone or a distanced tour of a local park, something that would reunite this community either virtually or in a very safe fashion. If you have some information that you would like to share or some ideas, again, you can email auctionchair2020@gmail.com. I'd also like to extend an invitation to you to participate the day after the elections in an open Zoom space in lieu of our Wonderful Wednesday programming. This year, we will be having Wonderful Wednesday election support in whatever way that takes place for you. There will be a Zoom link in Kairos. Chris Ainsworth and I will be facilitating that. That will be from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. on Wednesday, November 4th. And this is drop-in at any time, so you don't need to come right at 7. Please join us at any time between 7 and 8:30, the day after the elections. We will now take up an offering to support our work in the world. 80% of what is collected today will go to the UUSC, which is the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, an organization that is dedicated to human rights through grassroots collaboration. Thank you for your generosity, as always. You can give online by texting the number on your screen, or you can go to www.uurockford.org/donate and donate there. The offering will now be given and gratefully received.
Good morning. I'm Bob Arevalo. I'm your worship associate this morning. For the last few months, you and I have been living in a space between what was and what is yet to be. Our current pandemic has upset the world as we know it, and we don't know what is going to be on the other side. The word unprecedented has been used over and over, yet it really is unprecedented for us. For example, unless our grandparents or others took the time to tell us about the flu of 1918, we find it difficult to comprehend our circumstances. Or if you were a time traveler, you might remember the Black Plague of 1348 to 1350, where millions of people died. So we ask ourselves, what is good and what is bad about this time? For the good, this has been a time for me to think about what is important in my life. It has been a time to reinforce my love for my wife and our children. I miss seeing our adult children who live far away. And we've had projects during the lockdown, going through our mountains of photographs that we have kept over the years. We threw out pounds and pounds of old pictures we didn't need or want anymore, or were redundant, and then put many of the rest into albums. As we looked at these pictures, it also gave us a time to reminisce about old friends, family, and departed souls. Another thing I have done is call old, and I mean really old, friends that I haven't talked to in years. It is such an easy thing to pick up and phone and call an old friend, as long as their number is still good. It was rewarding to do this. Renewing friendships is a good thing to do during this transitional period. I'm sure many of you have done things new or creative. I've been cooking a lot. Some dishes turned out great, some, shall I say, didn't. Maybe you have done something you have wanted to do for a long time, so some good things could come out of this. For the bad, this has been a time of uncertainty, stress, and many concerns. How long is it going to last? What is our economy going to look like in the future? Or how is my economy going to look? Will the wounds of political polarity heal, or at least get better under a new administration? Is my life going to drastically change? Will I die from COVID-19? All these concerns are valid. I think about these concerns, but I don't let them consume me. And the borderlands, we see borders all over the place. A border between Mexico and the United States, fences between neighbors, physical and mental borders between people and peoples. In our political times of leaders dividing people and constructing physical borders, I believe this is a time to be closer and not farther away from each other. I believe compassion, mutual respect, and understanding both sides of an issue will solve many more problems than separating people with hard-to-penetrate borders. Finally, my friends, I hope that you are doing well during this time. I look forward to seeing you and talking with you in church when the borderlands are clear. Shalom Havarim.
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with pain I made my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
Sometimes I feel that my life is a series of trapeze swings. I'm either hanging on to a trapeze bar, swinging along, or for a few moments in my life I'm hurtling across space in between trapeze bars. Now most of the time I spend my life hanging on for dear life to my trapeze bar at the moment. It carries me along at a certain steady rate of swing, and I have the feeling that I'm in control of my life. I know most of the right questions and even some of the right answers. But once in a while, as I'm merrily or not so merrily swinging along, I look out ahead of me into the distance, and what do I see? I see another trapeze bar swinging towards me. It's empty. And I know in that place in me that knows that this new trapeze bar has my name on it. It's my next step. My aliveness coming to get me. And in my heart of hearts, I know that for me to grow, I have to release my grip on the present, well-known bar to move on to the new one. Now each time it happens to me, I hope, no, I pray that I won't have to grab the new one. But in my knowing place, I know that I must totally release my grasp on my old bar, and for some moment in time, I must hurtle across space before I can grab onto the new bar. And each time I'm filled with terror. It doesn't matter that in all my previous hurdles across the void of knowing, I have always made it. Each time I'm afraid that I will miss, that I'll be crushed on the unseen rocks in the bottomless chasm between the bars. But I do it anyway. Maybe this is the essence of what the mystics call the faith experience. No guarantees, no net, no insurance, policy. You do it anyway because somehow to keep hanging on to that old bar is no longer on the list of alternatives. And so for an eternity that can last a microsecond or 1,000 lifetimes, I soar across the dark void of the past is gone, the future is not yet here. It's called transition. I have come to believe that this is the only place that real change occurs. I mean real change, not the pseudo-change that only lasts until the next time my old buttons get punched. I have noticed that in our culture, this transition zone is looked upon as a no thing, as a no place, between places. Sure, the old trapeze bar was real, and the new one coming towards me, I hope that's real too. But the void between, there's just a scary, confusing, disorienting nowhere that must be gotten through as fast and as unconsciously as possible. What a waste. I have a sneaking suspicion that the transition zone is the only real thing, and that the bars are illusions we dream up to avoid the void where the real change occurs. Now, whether or not my hunch is true, it remains that the transition zones in our lives are incredibly rich places. They should be honored, even savored. With all the pain and fear and feelings of being out of control that can accompany transition, they are still the most alive, growth-filled, passionate, expansive moments in our lives. And so transformation of fear may have nothing to do with making fear go away, but rather giving ourselves permission to hang out in the transition between trapeze bars. Transforming our need to grab that new bar is allowing ourselves to dwell in the only place where change really happens. It can be terrifying. It can also be enlightening in the true sense of the word. Hurtling through the void, we may just learn how to fly.
I invite you to join me in a time of centering, of prayer, of meditation, whatever you may call that time when you listen to what your heart may be saying. And enter with me through this door, this space we make together. Step into this threshold of time and balance here for a moment, this moment. Not there, not the next place, just here, in this place, in between what was and what will be. Step into this threshold, this special transformative place and time, just here, just now, just be here together. May it be so.
Let me go where I will. I hear a sky-born music still. It sounds from all things old. It sounds from all things young. From all that's fair, from all that's foul, peals out a cheerful song. It is not only in the rose, it is not only in the bird, not only where the rainbow glows, nor in the song of woman heard, but in the darkest, meanest things. There always, always something sings. Always something sings. Always, always something sings. 'Tis not in the high stars alone, nor in the cup of budding flower, nor in the red breast's mellow tone, nor in the bow that but in the mud and scum of things there always, always something sings. There always something sings. There always something sings. Something sings.
I love the messages of both our story and our reading this morning. The one about the girl finding the courage to step out on the wire, and the parable of the trapeze, of the space between letting go of one trapeze and grasping the next as being a place of possibility. And how important it is to wait until it's the right time, to just hang in the middle and not grasp or jump in too soon or too late. In between times, threshold times, borderlands, to use a term from the theologian Gloria Anzaldúa, are oftentimes many of us tend to try to avoid. We as humans tend to not like the sense of uncertainty, of not being here or there. We try to rush through, hurrying to get to the other side. Yet in between times, liminal times, can also be times of great learning and growth, and deeply spiritual times, creative times, if we can but let them be, if we can just rest on the threshold between what was and what will be. Denan Perry tells us in the parable of the trapeze that the transition zone is actually the only real thing, and the bars of that trapeze are an illusion. That it is in that in-between time, that borderland, the liminal space where creativity and change occur, if we but allow ourselves to stay in that space. We are living in just such a time, are we not? The world we knew 9 months ago is behind us. We will not return to that world. It is forever changed, gone. We did not choose to let go of the trapeze we were on, but were forced, pushed into this threshold space. And we as yet do not know what the world, what life on the other side of this threshold we are resting on will be like, or even when we will cross it. We just know it will be different than what was. These times we find ourselves in require of us the practice of resilience. I am reminded that resilience does not mean going back to what was, but means being changed by what has happened, by the thresholds, the transitions, the borderlands. I find these words by the poet Jane Hirschfield helpful in understanding what kind of resilience these times require of us. She writes, "More and more I have come to admire resilience, not the simple resilience of a pillow whose foam returns over and over to the same shape, but the sinuous tenacity of a tree that is always growing and changing. None of this is easy, nor is it comfortable. It is downright scary and terrifying at times. Sitting on a threshold in transition between trapezes is never easy. I am not very good at it, and this huge threshold we are on is being very hard for me and for all of us. I am not exactly the most patient of people. I want to push through. I want to know the answers. I want to know when I will see my loved ones again, when we can all worship together again, when I can see and hold my grandchildren again. I want to know what my life and what our lives are going to look like, and I want to know now. And of course I can't. It's not possible. Not yet. You would think a long career as an interim minister would have prepared me for being comfortable with being on the threshold, of being in transition. That is what interim ministry is all about, after all, of helping and guiding congregations as they transition from one ministry to another and to grow and change to be prepared for what comes next. In many similar ways, that is where congregations and ministers find themselves during a time of ministerial sabbatical, as you are in here at the UU Church of Rockford. While not a transition in the way an intentional interim ministry is, during a sabbatical, both minister and congregation enter a time in between, and a time of change, transition, and learning. You will come back together in a new time, in a new way. You will have grabbed a new trapeze together. A guiding image, guiding image of interim transition ministry is the Roman god Janus, the god who sits above the doors, one face looking backwards and one face looking forward. Our work in transition is not to create the past, but to envision a new future, to be patient, to rest on the forming edge of time, to remember that we do not do this work alone. Even in this horrible threshold time, unlike any threshold we have ever known or imagined, we do not rest on the threshold alone. In the words of Scott Taylor from Soul Matters, a community has to have the elasticity to reform, stretch, and adjust and delight in each new vision of purpose, which springs it forward, not just back. Remember those folks, he says, those folk sayings that hold up the image of a tree being able to bend with the wind? Remember how they end with a message about resilience resting in our ability to flexibly lean and bend. Well, for us UUs, another kind of leaning is just as important. The practice of leaning on those next to us. Yes, bend with the wind, we say, but also remember that no one makes it through the windstorms alone. It's all a reminder that while resilience has a lot to do with what is inside us, it equally depends on what is between us. He says, forget solo act, think community choir. We survive our pain by having the strength to tell others about it. We find the courage to make our way through only when we sense we are not alone. Internal and individual grit only gets us so far. Empathy, assurance, and love from others gets us the rest of the way. Resilience has everything to do with the water within which we swim and the web of connections that surround us. Resilient people arise from resilient relationships. This is one hell of a windstorm we find ourselves in, is it not? And still, we are not in it alone. We will know when that trapeze that has our name on it is heading towards us and it's time to grab on. We will know. And though that time is not yet, we rest on the threshold, imagining together what comes next and what that might look like, knowing that it will not be the same as in the past. But for now, we stand together on the brink of everything. Talk about being on a threshold. Talk about needing to think in transformational terms and being engaged in transformational change to create a transformational way of being. None of us, and I mean none of us, know or have any clue at this point what that will look like in 2 weeks, let alone a year from now. What we do know is that we will work together to create that new way of being. This threshold will require of all of us to be engaged in transformational change. In an article on the blog on being, Jim Marsden writes, transformational change is different from either developmental change or transitional change. In developmental change, we grow by adding or developing new skills or by learning new things that will take us to where we want to be. With developmental change, we learn new things and grow, but our understanding of ourselves and the world that we are part of has not necessarily changed. In transitional change, we assess where we are today and where we would like to be in the future with as much clarity and specificity as possible. We then look at the gap between where we are now and where we'd like to be, and then go about the business of closing that gap. And here, too, our understanding of ourselves and the world does not change. In fact, transitional state change is most successful when there are no surprises to how we see and understand ourselves and the world. Transformational change, however, occurs when our foundational understanding of ourselves and the world around us significantly shifts. A transformation occurs when we go beyond the bounds of our current understanding and awareness. And we cannot think our way through this change. We have to experience our way through it. And so it is in this transformational threshold of change we find ourselves. We cannot think our way through this change. We have to experience our way through it. I was blessed years ago in seminary to be a student of the amazing Buddhist teacher Joanna Macy. Joanna talks about the time we are living in as being the Great Turning, which she describes as a shift from the industrial growth society to a life-sustaining civilization. This time, this threshold, is indeed an example of that shift, of our need to become a life-sustaining civilization, and I would say a life-saving church. We can do this. I know we can. We are in a tough time right now. The way forward is not clear, and it's scary. Like in our Message for All Ages in our video reading, we find ourselves on a tightrope or in the space between two trapezes. In Joanna Macy's words, out of this unknown, a new world can arise, not to be constructed by our minds so much as to emerge from our dreams. Even though we cannot see clearly how it's going to turn out, we are still called to let the future into our imagination. We will never be able to build what we have not first cherished in our hearts. What I know is that what we cherish in our hearts is our communities, our congregations and their people, Unitarian Universalism, and the world around us. And I know that in this great turning we find ourselves in, as the words of the song say, we will be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We will be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change, alive from deep within the earth. And most importantly, that in this great turning we will learn to lead in love, always in love. Always in love. May it be so.
Dear weaver of our life's design, whose patterns all obey, with skillful fingers gently guide the sturdy threads that will survive the tangle of our days. Take up the fabric of our lives with hands that gently hold. Bind in the ragged edge that care would sunder and that pain would tear, and mend our raveling souls. Let eyes that in the plainest cloth a hidden beauty see, discern in us our richest hues, show us the patterns we may use to set our spirits free.
In a moment, I will extinguish our chalice here in the sanctuary. But before I do so, I would like to read in the manner of a benediction, these words written by Reverend Kate Walker, who is also the daughter of our pulpit guest today, Reverend Marlene Walker. This is titled In Between. In between, liminal, that space where we wait. Between moments, events, results, action, no action, to stand on the threshold waiting for something to end and something new to arrive. A pause in the rumble of time. Awareness claims us, alert, a shadow of something different. In between invitation and acceptance, in between symptom and diagnosis, in between send and receipt of inquiry and question, in between love given and love received. Liminality, a letting go, entering into confusion, ambiguity, and disorientation, a ritual begun. Pause, look back at what once was, look forward into what becomes. Identity sheds a layer, reaches into something uncomfortable to wear. In between lighting of the match and kindling of the oil, in between choosing of text and the reading of words, in between voices and notes carried through the air into ears to hear, in between creation thrusts ever forward. Social hierarchies may disassemble and structures may fall. Communities may revolt or tempt trust. Tradition may falter or creativity crashes forward. Leaders may step down or take charge. The people may choose or refuse. In between, storm predicted, the horizon beacons. In between, theology of process reminds us to step back. In between, where minutiae and galaxies intermingle with microbes and mysteries. In between, liminal, that space where we wait, look, listen, feel, breathe.
Go your way in peace, wander as you may. Blessed is the path you take, may love guide you on your way. Go our way in peace, wander as we may. Blessed is the path we take, may love guide us on our way.